Toy Story, released November 22nd, 1995, directed by John Lasseter, starring Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, produced by Walt Disney Pictures and Pixar Animation Studios. Here's a little story about me and Toy Story, and how, in a way, it changed my life story. Back in the 90s, when I was 6 years old, my parents got divorced and we lived with my dad. We visited my mom every second weekend. Right across the street from where my mom lived, like right there, by the building, was a movie theater. So pretty much just about every other Saturday, she used to take us to the movies. The workers over there, they already knew us. We watched like 20 films a year growing up, just in that theater. You probably ask, how do I know? Well, because I keep track of all the films I've ever watched in theaters throughout my entire life. Yes, I'm a psychopath. Anyway, that theater, rest in peace, was a very big part of my childhood and probably the reason why I love film today. And Toy Story was one of my earliest memories in that movie theater and in a movie theater in general. You need to understand, back then when we went to see an animated movie, which was every other Saturday, it was always 2D. CGI was like the next level. Yes, of course, we saw some CGI here and there, but it was small bits, commercials or short TV shows, intros and such, and most of them didn't look that great, to be honest. Just the idea of a full-length feature made entirely with CGI was mind-blowing. And that's exactly what Toy Story did. Keep in mind, in '95, it looked almost realistic to us. That thing looked real. Okay, not so much the dog, but still. But here's the thing, they could have easily just made this, a gimmick and just rely solely on the idea of, look, we made a CGI movie. And that's it. No plot, no characters development. But no, we're talking about Pixar here. They made a film with a soul. Not talking about this movie, this one is great too. That was the introduction of Pixar to the entire world. And the idea of what is a Pixar film. An original, well-written story with original likable characters and amazing performances that holds up to this day. Tom Hanks is one of my favorite actors of all time, but as a kid I didn't even know that his voice is Woody. It was like a late surprise for me when I found out, and I was like, oh, that was him? That makes sense. No wonder I love it. Not only it revolutionized animated films visually, but also in the creative way of telling a story. It was just different from any other animated film at the time. The groundbreaking animation aside, the jokes felt more adult, at times it was kinda creepy, and the topics were very deep. Things like the meaning of life, growing up, and friendship. You don't expect a kids' family movie to be so existential. That was not your typical Disney musical. And that's what made it such an important step in the evolution of cinema and animated movie. It pushes the boundaries of not only animation but story. And I really don't want to talk about the plot because of two reasons. One, there's so many videos out there, breaking down the plot. But also, apparently there's still people living here in this world that haven't seen it yet. What's wrong with you? I mean, I can't trust you if you haven't seen it. What type of a person you are, man, go watch it right now. But I will say this, think about it, they could have easily made like the typical formula of bad versus good and, make Woody the villain, but they didn't. They managed to make Woody likable, even though he was the so-called enemy of the cool toy. And they made a cool toy likable as well. How did they do that? That's Pixar magic for you. I don't know a lot of films that do that. That's pretty clever, you gotta admit. It's the little simple things, the little details. Just like toys, that's what Pixar did. They paid attention to the small details. It didn't have to be so clever and good. Just the animation itself would have been enough to consider this a breakthrough. But it had so much more than just that. It's a creation that was made with a heart. And it changed the way we see animated movies today. Toy Story is a movie with a heart that holds a special place in my heart. Since then, I have watched every single Toy Story film in the theater, no matter how old I am. Every time there's a new Toy Story coming up, I'm watching it on the big screen. It's like a life tradition at this point. Speaking of, I'm not even talking about the sequels. that are the prime rare example of how to make a franchise that each movie is so good that you can't really make up your mind which is the best because each one of them is a masterpiece. Seriously, I can't think of any other franchise that has a perfect lineup, and hopefully it will stay that way. I don't know what will happen in the future, but we do know that John Lasseter, story and director, once said about the sequels that Pixar decided to produce more films in the series because of their pure passion for it. I guess only if it's a story worth telling. So I want to believe that other than the obvious financial reasons, they truly treat it with care and love. And since Disney technically owns Pixar, I guess in a weird way, this might be my favorite so-called Disney franchise. That's right, I said it. I don't care. Today, Toy Story celebrates 30 years since its original release. That's insane. I'm very old. But that's the beauty of it. You get to grow with it. Me and Andy are about the same age, and maybe that's also part of the reason why this film was so relatable to me. Because Toy Story is a story about changes. Families moving, a new toy arrived, changing in dynamics, adapting to new circumstances, evolving relationships, identity, similar to the things I dealt with at the time, right after my parents got divorced. And today, I'm a father, and I already know that I will take my son to see the next Toy Story movie for his first theater experience. Because when I think of my childhood theater and how I fell in love with cinema, I will forever think of Toy Story. To infinity and beyond.